Hello, everyone. It's another week, and I hope it's all been going well. It was sunny just 5 minutes ago. Now it's cloudy again here in Xinjiang. Yeah, I hope it's going well wherever you are. We are starting week 9 already, and we only have 14 weeks, so we've got a lot of ground still to cover. This is all very exciting stuff. I hope your video lessons are doing well. I'm very interested in seeing them. Very, very interested. Now, this week we're going a bit more in depth with pronunciation and consonant pronunciations. Remember that we have the two basic phonemic sounds. We call them vowels and consonants. And I'm sure in Professor Pak's class you'll go into more detail about how they're different and what we do. Vowels are all continuant, and that they can go on forever. As long as we have breath, we can make a vowel sound. Some of the consonant sounds are continuant, but not all of them. So it's something that we'll have to be aware of and how else they are different. Also, I'm sure you've already seen it. There is another video on eClass where we go much more in depth about different minimal pairs and vowel pairings. Not vowel pairings, consonants. We only cover the consonants. We only covered a few of them. 6 pairs? 4 pairs? A number of pairs. But we went in depth, and it was all very exciting. It is all very exciting, as we haven't done this yet. So let's review week 8. We introduced our phonemic chart for English. There's about 40 sounds. And something to bear in mind, something to always remember, that the phonemic chart is concerned with the sounds that we make, not spellings. When we write something out in IPA, the International Phonemic Alphabet, then that doesn't necessarily mean that the spelling is going to follow. Part of our future quiz is going to be asking you to read IPA words and phrases and correctly identify what the spelling is, what the word is, to put 2 to 2 together and figure it out, decipher, as it will. So, something I was fascinating with when I did this activity before about having students, read IPA sentences and see if they could read it and understand it. At my old elementary school at Samyuk Chodan Hokyo here in Xinjiang, with the older students, you can challenge them with IPA. Students who had a hard time guessing which sound to make for C or K or G, or when is it like enough? Why, if you look at it, it's inuga. Clearly it's inuga. Some students have a hard time remembering what the actual sounds are. So for them, reading IPA was the best thing in the world. They could actually read it and make the correct sound the first time, and they didn't feel stupid. Because, unfortunately, that if you keep guessing wrong, it hurts your old self-esteem. So it is something nice to know and something nice to look at. If you're ever wondering what the pronunciation of a word is, how to say a word officially correct, well, the phonemic chart is there for us. Don't forget, video presentations are coming. I really hope you started them. I really, really hope you started. Hopefully, you've made a lesson plan. I really hope you started recording stuff as well. But I really hope you've started thinking about your lessons. If you have any questions, please ask me. No one has asked any questions yet, so I'm terrified. But with that, let's see. I have 3 questions here for you to think about. Question 1, Unfamiliar English sounds are usually substituted for familiar ones. Can you think of any examples? So there are some some sounds we have in English that we don't have in Korean. So we have to substitute them. Can you think of any sounds we have in English but not in Korean? There's several, actually. So, of course, one is the F sound. We don't have that. So, what's the usual substitution? Now, for the F sound, what sound do we substitute for F in Korean? If we need to say, fine, French fries, family, if we're doing direct transliterations but using Korean sounds, usually we use the piup. But piup and f and f are not the same. They're the closest approximation, but they're not the same. So we get often the jokes, kind of harder jokes, where you ask, hello, how are you? And the Korean student says, I'm pine, thank you and you. Now, pine is a kind of tree. It's a sonamu. So this is an example of replacement. There's no native sound, so we have to find another one that's close, as close as we can get it. Not that one. Another example is z. We don't have z, so when we need to say something with a word with the sound z sound in it, for example, zombie, so we replace it with the z with a some zombie. It's a close approximation, as close as we can get. Question 2. What vowel sounds are difficult for Korean speakers? Something to consider. And other questions to think about this week. Other problems Korean learners of English struggle with, specifically within pronunciation. Okay, so here, let's talk about, rather, difficult consonant sounds. So we have j, ch, z. So j, ch, z. So chin, jin, zin, chain, jane, zane. These are can be difficult for Korean speakers to sound. This one, of course, the l and r. In Korean, we combine these two sounds, liup, and English speakers, of course, have a hard time. I especially have a hard time pronouncing liup. I want to say l or r as separate sounds, not as combined. So lore, roar, lily, really, lip, rip. Yeah. It's one. Okay. So lore and roar, lily and really, lip, rip. Some difficult vowel sounds. If e, so pan, pen, man, men, lobes, loaves. This one's also difficult with the v sound, the v sound, which again is not native in Korean. So it's an unusual sound to make and unfamiliar. So pan, pen, man, men, lobes, loaves. Other vowel sounds that Korean speakers have difficulty with are what we call the short E long E, or just I and E. Slip, sleep. Slip, I, E. Slip, sleep. Lip, leap. Lip, leap. Dip, deep. Dip, deep. Now, you can also hear it, hopefully, since we talked about the syllabic stress. Where am I placing stress? You can hear it dip, deep. Because it's a longer sound, it necessarily must get stressed because it's a longer sound. So slip and sleep, lip and leap, dip and deep. If we say deep shorter, dip, it necessarily becomes a different sound. So dip, we can, if we elongate out dip, make the sound longer. Dip, that's fine. And deep, so make deep shorter, as short as we can. Dip, deep, 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 deep. It becomes much closer to this. And that's why it's important that we give enough time, enough space to allow pronunciation of this whole sound. And then it's much easier to hear, understand, and be understood. Substitution. This is something. So we talked about this more in depth in the other video, but th for duh. So instead of they becomes they, or there becomes there becomes der. Some people, native English speakers, they replace the sound with a duh sound. We don't want to say that it's the wrong way of speaking, but it's not the traditional educated way of speaking. Now we see this with the s, this. So instead of saying sing a song, it'd be thing a thong. This is a basic lisp. Lots of children have this growing up. I had a lisp until middle school, second year. And so it's a kind of speech impediment, and it's something to think about and be aware of. So instead of saying s, I said my tongue would get in the way. And we see this as well about p for f. We see this in quite often, as mentioned. Instead of saying I'm fine, thank you, say I'm pine, thank you. And b for v. Of course, instead of saying love, L-O-V-E. In Korean, we can't natively say the sound, so it becomes lubba. That's how it is. All right, but I think you if you don't know this, you do it. So it's something to be aware of. And also, using j or s for z. I'm North American, so I say z. If you go talk with British English speakers or Australian, they'll call the letter Z. It's the same thing. Now, additional problems where we have the application of Korean pronunciation rules on English. This happens. Most speakers do it when they're learning. You apply your first language syntax and rules on your second language. So adding a consonant ending, or e, to the ending of a word. This has to do with how Korean words shouldn't end in a sentence. Korean words shouldn't end in consonants. So instead of saying nice, ending with a s sound, it becomes nicer. Oh. So it's a common thing. Love becomes labu. Also, forcing in single syllable words into multiple syllables, 2 or 3, that can happen. And of course, we have Konglish, which some words, Konglish is not English. They're borrowed words, and then as they've been used, their meaning has been changed. And so there are some words that we use in Korea, Konglish words, but native English speakers might not be familiar with the usage of how Koreans are using them. So, give an example. Notebook. What is a notebook in English? What's the Korean word for notebook? 공책. That's what it is. It's the blank paper put together that you write down in. Now, a notebook computer, sure. That's a notebook thing, but it's an example where the Konglish and the English have split apart. Skinship is another word. Spec is another example. Specs, or if you're talking about your specs, in reference to in Korean, it's about your spectrum of skills, your specifications. But in English, we don't use that to talk about people. We use that to talk about computers or cars, things. That's another difference. AES Center, after service, we don't say it. Konglish isn't wrong because it's not English. It's Korean. That's okay. Just don't go to London or New York or Houston and expect other speakers to know Konglish words. They might recognize the sounds, but they won't know the meaning. But this is quite common. English does it a lot as well. You'll take a word from another language, but over time, the word pronunciation changes, of course, but also the meaning can change. There's a French word we use in North America called entree. E-N-T-R-E-E with a little accent. Now, in North America at restaurants, entrees are your main dish. It's your big meal. It's not appetizer, it's not your dessert. Entree is your main meal. In France, where the word entree is from, that's the word for appetizer, for your first little snacks before your big meal. Because entree means entry. It's what it is. So the meaning of the word has changed. Is it correct French? Absolutely not. But that's okay. It's not a French word. It's not used as a French word. So don't feel bad about using Konglish in Korean. Perfectly fine. All right. Our other lecture is not quite long, but it's a full 16 minutes as well. So that goes into more depth. I want to reemphasize, don't forget your video. Right now you have time. You've got lots of time. Don't wait until 1 p.m. on May 31st to start your project. Do not. Don't. You have lots of time. Use that time. Don't forget you need to write a lesson plan for your video. If you turn in just your video and no lesson plan, your grade is going to suffer. Please make sure you write a lesson plan and also your video. All right. Next week, we are also going to have a quiz. It'll be on in-class, be almost all multiple choice, be based on syllable, stress, syllable, word, and sentence stress, intonation, and common difficulties Koreans have when speaking English. Most of it will be multiple choice, but it will be on e-class sometime next week. All right. This is our brief reminder of some of the difficulties we have. Hopefully, we'll be more active on the discussion board because those will have those discussion questions. And hopefully, we have an excellent week. good luck on your video projects. I'm very excited to see them, and have a great day.